What is going on in boxing? It was confirmed earlier this week that British boxer Amir Khan has been banned from all sport for 2 years after the prohibited substance ostarine was detected in his sample following his fight against Kell Brook in February of 2022. In a recent interview, the lead boxing promoter of Sky Sports, Benn, who was the one who promoted the fight between Khan and Brook, noted that he and his team had found out about the news of Khan's failed drug test via social media, insisting he was never contacted by any organisation in regard to Khan's failed test. Shalom further stated he had instructed both VADA and UCAD testing for both Khan and Brook, which are two of the most well-respected drug testing organisations in boxing today. So this isn't the first time, and certainly won't be the last time, that a big name boxer is pulled for a banned substance, as over the last decade some of boxing's household names have all failed drug tests for banned substances, such as Tyson Fury, Canelo Alvarez, Jean-Pascal and Jarrellmiller, who was caught with a substance that he injected into his body in the lead up to his supposed fight against then heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. The big question is, how are so many fighters getting away with using banned substances? This is largely due to the standard of drug testing across the board in boxing. The sport is basically run by the 4 major world title organisations, which are the WBC, the WBA, the IBF and the WBO. Each of these organisations have their own world top 15 fighters for each of the 17 divisions across the sport, all the way from minimum weight to heavyweight. So when it is time for a fighter to fight for one of the organisation's championships, the organisation will commission a fighter in which it is expected for a fighter to follow the designated drug testing programme that is set out for them in their anti-doping policies, which is different for each of the major 4 organisations. We will start with the most recognisable boxing organisation in the WBC, who've come under fire a lot over the last few years, as many of their top contenders and champions have been cleared to fight following failed drug tests. Some of the most high profile of those being the cases with Canelo Alvarez and Conor Benn. The case with Canelo Alvarez, who was caught with clenbuterol in his system in the lead up to his rematch back in 2017 against Gennady Golovkin, leading to Canelo receiving a 6-month ban from the sport, pushing back his rematch with Golovkin to a later date. The substance that was found in Canelo's system, clenbuterol, can be used by athletes to burn fat and increase lean muscle mass, and has been a huge issue for boxing amongst Mexican world champions such as Luis Neri, who destructively dethroned long-reigning Japanese bantamweight champion Shinsuke Yamanaka, forcing the Japanese fighter to retire from boxing following back-to-back knockout defeats at the hands of Neri. And in more recent time, both WBC champions Ray Vargas and Julio Cesar Martinez were caught to have had the banned substance in their systems. Many Mexican fighters, including Canelo himself, blame their failed tests on contaminated meat, as in Mexico, clenbuterol is used to build muscle mass in poultry and lamb meat. This forced the WBC to change their rule set and to announce that it would begin acknowledging the increased allowable threshold for the drug clenbuterol established by the World Anti-Doping Association, meaning those fighters with positive tests that were conducted by the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association in conjunction with the WBC's Clean Boxing programme would no longer have been considered a failed test or to be a fault, because the amount found in their system was so small. The WBC has the Clean Boxing programme, which works alongside VADA, who can test fighters even when they aren't in periods of activity within the sport of boxing. The programme was instilled to prevent boxers from taking performance-enhancing drugs, but it seems that the WBC don't enforce their own policies correctly. The other 3 major organisations in the WBO, the IBF and the WBA don't test year-round like the WBC, and only tend to test fighters before and after a fight has taken place. The latter, the WBA, do in fact have their own clean boxing programme, which is similar to the WBC's and have pushed for VADA testing to be compulsory throughout in boxing. However, the major issue with VADA is that the testing is done on a voluntary basis and the fighter can opt out of conducting drug tests, just as Conor Benn did in early 2022. Long before his fight with Chris Eubank Jr. fell apart, as at the time Conor Benn was removed from the WBC's top 15 rankings following failing to enroll in its clean boxing program. As it unfolded, Conor Benn go on to later that year announce a fight up at a catch weight of 157 pounds against Chris Eubank Jr. until the fight would be scrapped, as it was found that Conor Benn had failed a test for traces of a fertility drug called clobazam, which is known to elevate testosterone levels in men, were found in his urine. Benn would go on to be banned from boxing in the UK by the British Boxing Board of Control and threatened to sue the British Boxing Board of Control after they refused to sanction his bout against Eubank Jr. at the last second. Benn compiled his own 270-page legal dossier, which he shared with the WBC and not the British Boxing Board of Control. The WBC will conclude that the failed test to a highly concentrated level of eggs in Benn's diet and offered Benn one of their specialised nutritionists for Benn to seek advice from going forward. It is now reported that Benn will face Eubank Jr. in the Middle East, following Eubank Jr. suffering a vicious knockout by Liam Smith in a fight that took place in the intervening months following the collapse of the initial fight date against Benn. The current WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, was caught having nandrolone in his system in the lead up to his rematch with Vladimir Klitschko. The finding of nandrolone from a test found 8 months before he beat Klitschko in their first contest. It was reported that Tyson had paid a farmer £25,000 to give false information in Fury's drugs trial, in which the farmer confirmed that Fury's failed test was due to the fact that he consumed boar meat. The drug testing programs in boxing pale in comparison when it comes to the UFC, who use USADA, which tests the UFC fighters all year round. When this was first introduced into the UFC, there were some of the most drastic changes in physical appearance seen in their fighters, such as ubereem, often referred to as ubereem, for his standout physical appearance and fighting ability. The issue of performance enhancing drugs has always been a part of boxing, as there has been many high profile scandals, including the Shane Mosley Balco scandal, and in more recent years Mike Tyson admitting he would use a fake prostate with someone else's urine in it when he was drug tested when he used to fight. So what should boxing do? Should all of the major 4 title organisations come together to form their own board to combat this issue, which is crippling the sport of boxing? Or are they just choosing to look the other way, as there is just too much money involved in the sport of boxing and these organisations profit so heavily off of them?